You're watching Channel 4 News with 5-time Emmy Award-winning anchor Ron Burgundy and Tits McGee.
Good evening, San Diego. I'm Veronica Corningstone. Tits McGee is on vacation.
In a world overflowing with movies, we need a hero. Someone to separate the bad from the good.
Hi everyone, I'm Em and welcome to Verbal Diorama, episode 125, Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy. This is the podcast that's all about the history and legacy of movies you know and movies you don't. A huge welcome here from my home on Whore Island to everyone listening. Welcome back to all of you wonderful, amazing returning listeners, and welcome all you brand new listeners to this podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for finding this podcast and choosing this podcast as your number one source for the local news. I'm so happy that you are here. And also, welcome to a man who I friggin' love more than I love lamp. A man whose podcast always takes me to Pleasure Town. A man who has many leather-bound books and whose apartment smells of rich mahogany. A man who 60% of the time works every time. And the man who hosted me on Livestream for the Cure back in May, raised so much money for cancer research, Mr. Nicholas Haskins from the podcast Nikoli's Kitchen. Welcome to Verbal Diorama.
I'm on right now? I don't believe you.
You are on right now.
I'm so thrilled to be here. This is so long overdue. I am just giddy. I'm giddy.
I'm giddy too. We've actually had quite a lengthy conversation before we've even started recording, and that is how much we adore each other.
Yeah. Can I just say, you're amazing. She's amazing, listeners. If you're listening to this because you're from, I don't know, you followed from my show or whatever, she's amazing.
Well, I only have amazing people guesting on this podcast, so you are similarly amazing, and I genuinely do love you more than I love lamp, so that is a fact.
What about desk?
No, I don't love you more than I love desk. I'm sorry.
I knew it. I knew it.
But yeah, we have been talking about this for so long, about you coming on this podcast. We've had lengthy discussions pretty much since Livestream for the Cure, which was in May. And we said, we want to get together, we want to do something. And we're actually doing like a double recording session because I am going to be on your podcast around the same time that you are going to be, well, live-ish when it's released, because it's going to be in the future, because that's how podcasting works, listeners. I'm getting myself confused now. Podcasting works because you record in the past and then you release it in the future. Oh my god. Like, newsflash. This is the literal up-to-date news that we are serving you. Podcasts are recorded in the past and then released in the future. So you'll never find that out from any other podcast.
For some reason, that just reminded me of that Simpsons joke where Homer asked if they were doing the animated, like, Itchy and Scratchy live, and they're like, very few cartoons are broadcast live. It's a terrible strain on the animator's wrists. I don't know why it made me think of that, but it did.
I've never heard that joke before.
Everything comes back to The Simpsons for me. It's a condition. I'm so sorry.
No, you do not have to be sorry, because, I mean, The Simpsons is iconic. Genuinely iconic. It's the longest running animated TV show ever. So clearly they're doing something right.
You're not allowed to do the Simpsons movie on this show unless I'm invited.
I was actually going to do the Simpsons movie for the last animation season, and it got replaced with something else. I'm so sorry.
Man.
But, yeah, I will do the Simpsons movie. I will definitely do the Simpsons movie at some point. So basically what you're saying is if I do the Simpsons movie without you, what will that mean?
I can't think of a funny segue or response. Words are things that people say out of their faces, out of their mouth holes.
It's kind of required for a podcast, Nick.
Oh my lord!
And this is our conversation.
This is so if this podcast is Baxter, I just punted it off of a bridge. That's what I'm getting around to.
What are you saying, Nick? I don't speak Spanish. Anyway, back on track, because I am very excited that Nick is here, because he is wonderful and amazing, and like I say, this has been such a long time coming, and I know that we are going to have the most brilliant time talking about Anchorman, because this is definitely a fan favourite movie. I mean, people still talk about Anchorman. It's like probably one of the best comedies of the 2000s. So that's basically why you're here. I'll tell you what I'll do. I will run the trailer for Anchorman and I'll pop it in at a later date, because that's how podcasts work.
There was a time when people believed everything they heard on TV. This was an age when only men were allowed to read the news. And one anchorman was more man than the rest.
Good evening. I'm Ron Burgundy?
Damn it! Who typed a question mark on the teleprompter? Hey, Garth, how's the divorce?
Oh, not so good. I'll probably never see my kids again.
Fantastic.
I'm not lonely. I'm beloved by everyone in San Diego. You're so wise. You're like a miniature Buddha covered in hair. What are your hopes? What are your dreams? What are your passions?
To be the first female anchor.
And I'd like to be King of Australia. Seriously, you sound like an insane person.
I just got a call from Network, and the decision has been passed down to make Veronica our co-anchor. No! 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 Don't get me wrong, I love the ladies, but they don't belong in the newsroom. It is Anchor Man, not Anchor Lady! I don't know what we're yelling about!
What if just for tonight we weren't co-workers, we were co-people? Oh, I'm storming your castle on my steed, milady.
We should keep it relatively quiet around the station.
Absolutely. I'd also like to share with you that we are currently dating, and that she is quite a handful in the bedroom. Uh-oh.
Knights of Columbus, that hurts!
What are you doing on our station's turf, Burgundy?
Come get a taste.
You took a bullet for me.
And I would not do that again. And it hurts like a mother.
Take me right now.
Let's make a baby!
I've got a little plot summary here for Anchorman. It's not really little. I nicked it from IMDb, because that's also how podcasts work. Okay, let me be serious now. I've got to put my serious face on and voice and all of the serious stuff.
The shenanigans are over. Done.
Over. We've. This is a serious podcast about serious news now. Pandas are giving birth, Nick. and we need to be serious. In 1970s San Diego, journalism was a well-respected profession and people actually cared about what they saw on TV. And the top-rated anchorman in the city is Ron Burgundy. He enjoys his 5-year run at the top and his news team is equally as good as he is. Professional jock and former professional... Who writes these things?
Random IMDb users.
They don't write English good.
Brick Tamland.
Brick wrote this. Professional jock, Champ Kind handles the sports. Curiously dim-witted Brick Tamland, who's a few channels short of a cable subscription, handles the weather. And ladies' man Brian Fontana, whose collection of fine cents would be in the Guinness Book of Records, handles the on-field reporting. But now that is all about to change forever. Channel 4 News has embraced diversity and has hired a beautiful new female anchor, Veronica Corningstone. While Ron Burgundy and the rest of the Channel 4 News team enjoy fighting with competitors, drinking and flirting with the ladies, Veronica quietly climbs her way to the top. And Veronica's success drives Ron Burgundy crazy with frustration and passion. So much that Veronica's meddling causes Ron to get demoted and ultimately lose his job. Now left with nothing, Ron must find a way to get back to the top, and that involves a story about a rare Chinese panda giving birth on US soil. Will Ron be the one to report the story on a national level? ? That is a terrible description, but never mind. We'll go through the cast of this movie. Will Ferrell as Ron Burgundy, Christina Applegate as Veronica Corningstone, Paul Rudd as Brian Fontana, Steve Carell as Brick Tamland, David Koechner as Champ Kind, Fred Willard as Ed Harkin, Chris Parnell as Garth Holiday, Catherine Hahn as Helen, Fred Armisen as Tino, Vince Vaughn as Wes Mantooth, and there's cameos galore in this movie. But some notable cameos: Danny Trejo, Jack Black, Judd Apatow, Tim Robbins, Luke Wilson, Ben Stiller, Missy Pyle and Seth Rogen. Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy was written by Will Ferrell and Adam McKay, and it was directed by Adam McKay. Yay, I finally did it. Right. Okay.
Now do it again.
So... This is live, Nick. This is like 6 o'clock live news. You don't get a chance to do it again. You've got one chance. And that's it. I know, it's high pressure. It's high pressure.
I don't know if I can take this.
This is obviously an equal opportunities podcast. Women have been allowed in podcasting since about 2018, I think. Women were legally allowed to start podcasting. And before then, obviously, it was only a man's game, which is similar to the plot of this movie. And I'm completely lying, obviously, because, you know, podcasting is very mixed. But I just thought it was funny.
True podcasting.
It clearly wasn't funny because Nick didn't laugh.
True podcasting did not begin until M started verbal diorama. Let's be honest. Let's be fair. Okay.
No, that's ridiculous because you were on Epic Film Guys long before that.
Yeah, but we just made dirty jokes and stuff, and you know, I hated on a lot of movies. You know, it's just what I did.
Yeah, let's not talk about Avengers Endgame because. Right. Okay, so I do actually have a brief production history of how Anchorman came to be. Nick, would you be interested to find out this information?
I would. That's why I listen to your show, because I love that about your show. Can I just say that? I love that about your show, because a lot of movie shows are, here's my opinion of this movie. You know, and you certainly do offer your opinion on, you know, the movie and whatever, but you also get into like all of the kind of facts about things that, you know, somebody like me, like I find it very interesting, but not interesting enough for me to research it myself. So I love that about your show, that you really take the time to, you know, look into the history of these things and the legacy of these things. It's almost like your show's all about the history and legacy of movies you know and movies you don't.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yes, your show is amazing, Em. Yes.
Look,
she's not making me say this, guys. I'm blinking at you.
Nick needs help. He's currently trapped in my basement. I'm not actually going to let him out until he compliments me a respectable amount of time. Enough times, even I can't even speak.
The glass never gets full, guys. It never gets full.
No, but I feel like in this situation, because I'm not telling you to say all these things, you just are saying all these things, but it's making me feel really good about myself. And so now I'm thinking that maybe you need to come on more often to make me feel good.
I'm here for it.
Which is really selfish.
I'm here for it. Sign me up.
Okay, you're always welcome on this podcast. Not just because it makes me feel nice that all you do is compliment me literally all the time.
You know what?
Okay.
Stop being so amazing. Start being a jerk. Yeah. Just start being just completely terrible. And then I won't compliment you all the time. Go ahead. I'll wait. We'll do it live.
No, we're not, because I don't want my podcast to get off the track.
It's way too late for that.
It is a bit way too late. But to be honest, most of this stuff I'm going to have to edit out. So apologies. But I'm going to try and keep the funny stuff in. And I'm also going to keep the stuff in where you say really nice things about me.
That's just going to be the whole show. You're just going to do a supercut of just the nice things. I don't know what, he just wouldn't stop saying nice things. He literally didn't say anything else.
Like, so Nick, what do you think of Anchorman? I think Verbal Diorama is the best podcast ever. You're amazing. I love you. And I'm like, yeah, but what do you think of Anchorman, Nick? I don't care about Anchorman. All I care about is Verbal Diorama. That's basically going to be this podcast.
I mean, that is true, though. It's 100% fact. I didn't even watch it. I just listened to episodes of Verbal Diorama to prepare myself.
I'm going to go through the brief production history. You're going to stop complimenting me just for a brief second. Just behave yourself, please. While still at Saturday Night Live, Will Ferrell and Adam McKay began working on a script called August Blowout, which Will Ferrell would later describe as Glengarry Glen Ross meets a car dealership. And although this script was popular around Hollywood, the resulting movie never got made. One of the early supporters of Will Ferrell and Adam McKay and this particular script was director Paul Thomas Anderson, who offered to shepherd a script written by the pair. And basically, Anchorman came about because Will Ferrell saw an interview on 70s TV anchorman Mort Crim. And Crim was a top candidate to become co-anchor on ABC's World News Tonight in 1978. But instead, he joined Channel 4, which became WDIV TV in Detroit in 1978. And he was the network's top anchorman. He would actually retire from being a news anchor in 1997. So the character of Ron Burgundy is loosely based on a real person called Mort Crim. And Veronica Corningstone is also based on a real person. Mort Crim had a colleague called Jessica Savitch, and she started her career as an administrative assistant at WCBS in New York. But despite her lack of broadcasting experience, she was hired by KHOPU TV. Seriously, why do all of your channels have weird names? Like, here in the UK, it's BBC One, BBC Two, ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5. That's it. Well, apart from all of the other channels that have come about. But they're so strange. Like, all of these random letters, it's really off-putting. KHOPU TV in Houston, and she was their station's first female reporter. Similarly to Anchorman, she was a diversity hire because the station's license could have been removed if they were sued due to a gender discrimination lawsuit. She would become the weekend anchor of NBC Nightly News and a daily presenter of NBC News during the late 1970s and early 1980s. She was one of the first women to anchor an evening network news broadcast alone as well. So, as I said, Crim would form the inspiration for Ron Burgundy, Savitch for Veronica Corningstone, and interestingly, the 1996 movie Up Close and Personal, starring Michelle Pfeiffer and Robert Redford, is also loosely based on the life and career of Jessica Savitch. And even more interestingly, Jessica Savitch's own autobiography, which came out in 1982, was titled Anchor Woman. I'm not even joking. Basically, that is how the movie kind of in a roundabout way came about. And then obviously Judd Apatow picked it up. He is a very well-known producer. He kind of tends to specialise in like bromantic comedies. And the idea around this script was that they wanted to change the way that scripted comedy was done. It was kind of a bit radical at the time to kind of bring these comedians in and to have them embracing improv in such a way that this movie embraces improv. Each scene was filmed at least 6 times for those improvisational takes, which is why there's so many outtakes of this movie. If you've got like the DVD or the Blu-ray, there are so many outtakes, there's so many alternate lines, and I'm always so impressed that people can improvise, because I can't. I'm rubbish at it. Genuinely, if I'm put on the spot, I can't say anything funny.
Okay, go. I'm waiting.
No, I know, and I can't do it. I can't make you laugh. I have to think about it. So it takes me a little while. Like, I'll take like 5 minutes. In the back of my mind, I'll think, oh, that's a really funny line. I'm going to say that to Nick. And then 5 minutes later, I'll say the line and you'll be like rolling on the floor laughing like hysterically at my hilarity. But I could not just come up with something funny. And the fact that these guys can come up with continually funny lines, often completely different versions of the same line over and over again, is one of the reasons why I think this movie is as brilliant as it is. There are some alternate castings. I mean, the cast is pretty iconic in this movie now, but there were other people who were going to take these roles. So John C. Reilly was up for Champ Kind, Chris Parnell for Brick Tamland, Ben Stiller, who got a cameo in this movie, was originally going to be Brian Fantana, Ed Harris was going to be Ed Harkin, Dan Aykroyd was going to be Garth Holiday, Alec Baldwin was going to be Frank Richard, and Amy Adams, Leslie Mann and Maggie Gyllenhaal were all up for the role of Veronica Corningstone. Leslie Mann, obviously, is the wife of... Oh, what's the dude's name? That's it. Judd Apatow. That's his name. Leslie Mann
What's the dude's name?
I can't remember his name. Leslie Mann is the wife of Judd Apatow. Maggie Gyllenhaal was considered to be too young to be Veronica Corningstone. She was only in her early 20s at the time. And the most important fact that I think you all need to know about this movie on this podcast is I can actually guarantee that verbal diorama is German for whale's vagina.
Oh, my Lord. Oh, my God.
So, Nick.
I'm
going to... This is the opportune moment for you to say something really nice about me.
Just cut up one of the earlier ones and insert it in here.
We came to doing Anchorman in a bit of a roundabout way. You originally wanted to do something a bit different to Anchorman, and I turned you down.
She did. Rejected out of hand. Just
yeah.
I actually cried for a couple days afterward. I didn't quite know how to move forward in this. Just I wanted to do Napoleon Dynamite, guys, and someone is not a fan. Besides Rebecca, who is in love with you because you don't like Napoleon Dynamite.
Well, you know, because we spoke before we started recording, and I told you how much I love your girlfriend Rebecca, just for being completely awesome and brilliant. But now I think I might love Rebecca more than I love you. I'm sorry.
Did you go back to your home on Horror Island?
Well, you have bad hair.
What did you say?
So I feel like this episode is just going completely off the rails. It is true.
It's not going completely. It started off the rails. It's never been on them. Like I really appreciate your like just really, really great attempts to put it back on them. But yeah, no. Just
this is going to be a disaster. This is going to be a disaster, and I love it.
This is the podcasting equivalent of watching a panda give birth.
It really is. This is the podcasting equivalent of both of us in the bear pit going, help, help.
That's all we're
And
doing. Just
literally no one
we're
helping.
just begging for somebody to come in here and help us or save us, but there's nobody. It's just us. So we have to somehow turn this into. Ugh. Oh God!
I don't know how we're going to do it. Listeners, it is true. I did say no to Napoleon Dynamite. I have never watched that movie in its entirety. I tried to watch it a few years ago, and honestly, I turned it off because I didn't get it and I didn't understand why everyone loved it. And I know so many people are going to be coming for me now because I know that it's like a cult favourite. People love it. I get that. I just don't understand it. And so when you said Napoleon Dynamite, it was a little bit like when I said, what do you want to do? In the back of my mind, I was like, please don't say Napoleon Dynamite. And then you said it. And I was like, how am I going to be really polite to this really wonderful, lovely man that I don't really like that movie? And I've never been able to sit and watch it. So I was like, I think I was quite polite about it, actually. And then I just kind of said, well, maybe we want to do something else instead. And, then I got you to choose Anchorman. In fact, did you even choose it, or did I tell you?
No, I'm pretty sure it was you that chose it. I seriously, when she shot down Napoleon Dynamite, it was like a trident got thrust into my chest and I died. Like, that's how bad it was. I was just gutted, destroyed. I don't know how else to describe it. It was like I had just sat through the Napoleon Dynamite animated series again. Like, that's how much it hurt me. But I'm here anyway.
I didn't even know what that is.
Oh, it's terrible. It's so bad. Like, and I unapologetically just love Napoleon Dynamite, the animated series, and somehow they got the entire cast of the movie to do voices. Some of them don't even sound the same, and they're definitely not written the same. It's terrible. It's unbelievably bad. Just that's how much it destroyed me when she turned down Napoleon Dynamite. But we're here for Anchorman. No, don't distract from the point here. This is your mess. So how are you going to clean it up?
Well, I'm going to clean it up because we're going to have a discussion about Anchorman, Nicholas. Do not make me full name you, because I will do it.
That hurt a little bit.
So, for this particular episode, normally regular listeners will know that normally episodes are quite structured. And it is a bit different when I have a guest on, because I can't do an episode of Verbal Diorama the normal way with a guest, because let's be honest, the guest wouldn't say anything. And also it wouldn't really make for a very good podcast for me to just talk and for a guest to say absolutely nothing. So
just like nod. I'll just nod and like go in agreement. Like just that'll just be the entire audio. Just like I mean,
I do like the fact that you agree with what I say and that you think I'm brilliant. So I mean, really, if you want to continue to do that, then that's cool. But I just thought it would be really nice to have a bit of a discussion, a little one-on-one discussion about Anchorman. There'll be facts and bits of information about Anchorman at the end of this episode. But for now, I just thought it'd be nice to have a bit of a discussion about it, because you've literally just finished watching it before we sat down and started talking. Yep. So it's really fresh in your memory. I watched it last night, so it's kind of fresh in my memory, although I have slept since. So yeah, I thought it'd be really nice to have a discussion about Anchorman. So I've written some discussion points, but we can basically talk about pretty much anything to do with this movie. When you chose Napoleon Dynamite, and then I said, no, let's do a comedy from the 2000s. And then I said, let's do Anchorman. I think I said, what do you think of Anchorman? And then you were very positive about doing Anchorman. So I feel like the choice actually kind of was yours. I just kind of suggested it and then you went along with it and you agreed with me, which is great. It's always so amazing when a man agrees with a woman, so thank you for doing that. But I guess in my mind, I just kind of thought that me and you on a podcast, it would be really fun to talk about a movie, a comedy as well, because I wanted this to be a really fun episode just generally anyway, because I'm not going to invite you onto my podcast to talk about Grave of the Fireflies, because that's just depressing.
Ugh.
And we would just be crying just continuously with each other. To have you on this podcast, I thought, well, to have a comedy, something we can enjoy and laugh about, and then obviously have a comedy with a man and a woman in that movie. I mean, most movies do contain men and women, so I mean, there's plenty of movies out there that contain both men and women. Mm-hmm. But I just really liked the idea of doing Anchorman with you. So let's talk about the humour in Anchorman, because, like I say, it is mostly improvised humour, and it's become a movie that has overtaken itself in the fact that it's become more than a movie. It's become quotes and it's become lines. And the humour of Anchorman is quite interesting to me in the sense that it feels like a very male sense of humour, because rewatching it, I was like, this is very much a bromance movie. This is a movie about these four guys and the relationship that they have with each other. And then a woman, God forbid, a woman could come in and disrupt the male friendship kind of thing that they've got going on. I mean, what do you think about the humour of Anchorman? Do you still think it actually holds up? I mean, how this movie is what, like...
almost 20 years old, which is sad and weird.
Yeah, it is almost. I was going to say like 17-ish, 17 years old. So do you think it still holds up?
I think yes and no. And I mean, all the characters in this movie are definitely designed to be kind of more caricatures than actual characters. And so there's kind of a surreal element to the humor in this film, I think, which, even given the subject matter, because, they're obviously talking about, sexism in the workplace and, women basically being demeaned, which especially in a 2021 sensibility just doesn't play the same. It's not that there aren't funny things about this movie, and it's not that there aren't like really good performances and really funny performances, but it's the subject matter just hits differently, I think, now than it did back in the day. Back in the day, the early 2000s was now back in the day. That's how long ago it was. But like, I think it hits really differently, though. Like, I just think it plays differently because we as a society are just becoming, I don't even think we're there yet in terms of rectifying things like sexism in the workplace. So it just, we're much more aware now, though, as a culture of this kind of behavior and how unacceptable it is, and like, while there's that kind of over the top caricature-ish nature of it that you can still kind of laugh at, it's like there's too much truth tied to it, to me anyway. So I don't know, like, when I rewatched it, like, it wasn't as funny as I remember it being. Like, there's certain moments, like Steve Carell in this movie is brilliant, and Christina Applegate, I was a huge Married with Children fan. I will always absolutely adore everything she does. She's such an amazing actress. But it's just, it's just the concept of, like, lampooning sexism, like, and I mean, obviously that's exactly the point that they're trying to make, like, how oafish and stupid and like Neanderthalish this mentality is to treat women in this way. Like, that's obviously what they're lampooning, but at the same time, like, I don't know, like I said, for me, it just hits a little bit differently now than it did before. Like, I haven't seen it in ages, like in years and years. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
It's really interesting, isn't it? That I remember watching this movie probably around the time it came out, probably 2004, 2005, because
back in the day.
It was back in oh, it's such a long time ago. We were so young back then. Because it was the movie that everyone was talking about. Everyone was talking about how amazingly funny this movie was. It was kind of a sleeper hit at the time. It came out of nowhere, and everyone was saying, you know, this is the comedy movie of the 2000s. And I remember watching it back then, back in the day, and really, really laughing my bum off, you know, thinking it was hilarious and so funny. And yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's weird how our lens changes, not just as we grow older, but also as the times change and how public perception changes. Obviously, sexism in the workplace, it was something that people were talking about back in 2004 because it has been a problem and it still is to a degree as well. But I feel like this movie came out at a time when it was appropriate to use the R word. And it also came out at a time when it was appropriate to use a homophobic slur. Yeah. And those sorts of things just aren't acceptable today. And obviously, the fact that society has come on to the point where we don't use words like that anymore is a good thing. Yeah. So it feels very much to me that this is a movie where the humour hasn't grown with the movie. The humour is a little bit outdated when you kind of retrospectively look at this movie. But the lines themselves, the quotes, haven't. I think the quotes themselves still hold up to a degree. It's one of those things that where I work currently, I actually do work with a team of men. So I am literally the Veronica Corningstone of my office. In a sense that, not in the sense that I'm sexually harassed or anything like that. But in the sense that, you know, being the only woman in a team of men. So it's one of those things that historically we would occasionally bring out Anchorman quotes. And Anchorman is probably the most quoted movie in my department. We still joke to this day that one of our colleagues has a bottle of Sex Panther in his drawer. And
contains bits of real Panther.
Well, 1 year, I'm not even joking, 1 year for a Secret Santa, he got a bottle of undisclosed cologne. It was literally just a blank bottle with nothing else on it. And so we said it was Sex Panther because it is one of the most pungent smells that you will ever smell. And it was a little bit like he opened the bottle and our nostril hair all burned off. And so ever since, we have said that he has a bottle of Sex Panther in his drawer and that he basically takes it out, you know, to entice the ladies with this pungent smell. It's so ingrained in the culture of where I work that this is the movie that, you know, the lines get repeated, not obviously all the time because we do work as well, but yeah.
It's just your whole job is just doing Anchorman quotes.
Yes. That is my job. Yeah, literally. I work for Judd Apatow Productions and my job is to just repeat Anchorman quotes all day long. But yeah, it feels like the lines have held up, but the comedy hasn't, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And it just, the whole film has like this kind of cartoonish quality to it. Like I said, it's meant to be over the top. It's meant to be lampooning the sexism, and it's like I said, you're not meant to look at the Channel 4 news team and think of them as, you know, oh, I want to emulate these guys' behavior. Like they're obviously just like I said, they're cartoonish, you know. The lines, you're exactly right. Like the lines in this movie, a lot of I mean, we've dropped like so many of them just during even our conversation before we started recording and during this recording. The lines, I don't think, and that will be the enduring legacy of this film. It'll be those lines. But yeah, like I think that we've come to a point in, you know, in culture where enjoyable to watch, even from a surreal perspective. It's not, because there's just, even still today, there's just still too much of a tinge of truth to it. There are still women that are treated this way in the workplace. Like, they're thought of as less than, like they're thought of as, not, small brained. Oh, you can't do this because you're a woman. Like, that kind of thing is still too prevalent in the world. And so watching this kind of thing, like, you can laugh at their buffoonishness, and you can laugh at, Brick saying, "I love lamp," and like all the different like silly things, like the big giant battle that they have with the other news teams is still so funny. But yeah, like whenever it skews back to the actual plot of this film and into the sexism, and it just doesn't play. Like, it literally just doesn't play. Like, I laughed at so many of the lines, but I just sat stone-faced through a lot of it. I was just like, yeah, this doesn't, like, I don't know. Like, I maybe that's me changing along with it. I don't know, but it doesn't play. I just don't think it plays.
I would be in agreement with you that I feel like if you actually start to dig a little bit deeper into the true meaning of this movie, it's highlighting obviously a very distasteful thing in how it treats the women, because apart from Veronica, there are other women in this particular newsroom, like in the back of the newsroom. We don't really get to know any of those women apart from Helen, who's the wonderful Catherine Hahn.
Baby Catherine Hahn, oh my God.
The Catherine Hahn. And she's so underused, because I think Catherine Hahn has maybe like 1 or 2 lines in this movie. And I know she was Catherine Hahn back then, but nowadays she's Catherine Hahn. You want Catherine Hahn in your movie.
I think so much of like, and I'm wearing a Parks and Rec shirt like as we record this. So like when I think of Catherine Hahn, I still think of her in Parks and Rec as the campaign manager, and just like literally like she storms into a scene and she just owns every single piece of it. So it's weird to me to see her in such a little bit role, not being, I mean, and she just, it's tough for me to pin down. Like, she just has a comedic style that when you see her and when she's on screen, she is just like, she owns it completely. Like, it's just unmistakably Catherine Hahn. But that's not in this movie because she wasn't Catherine Hahn yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's the thing. Obviously, she wasn't Catherine Hahn. She now is Catherine Hahn.
Yeah.
But even then, even if it was a completely different actress, I kind of feel like these movies, specifically like maybe the Judd Apatow kind of comedies, there were a lot of them in the 2000s going into the 2010s, and I'm not just picking on Judd Apatow because obviously I think this was maybe the comedy culture of the time, but obviously a lot of comedies do focus on men and the lives of men. I mean, men are quite funny. You're a funny guy. I would love to see a movie about you and your life.
Oh God.
But let's be honest, there are a lot of comedies about men and about the lives of men, and the women are always in the periphery. Like, they're always just the love interest or the girlfriend or the wife. And if they're the wife, they're normally nagging at the main character and all of that sort of stuff. And that tended to be the role for women in comedy. I certainly think that is starting to shift a little bit. I know Judd Apatow, I think he produced Trainwreck, which is a brilliant Amy Schumer comedy, which I absolutely love. I am definitely planning to cover Trainwreck at some point because I love Amy Schumer and I love that movie. And obviously I've covered Bridesmaids.
God, that
which
movie
was also produced by Judd Apatow.
That movie is
and Bridesmaids. I adore Bridesmaids
so
because
good.
it puts the women front and centre. And it makes the men a bit more of a periphery character. But it is just such a fantastic example of women in comedy and about how women can be funny. And I do think there's a misconception out there that's maybe linked to the casual sexism that this movie is referencing, that women aren't funny, which I absolutely think is the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard in my life. I have heard people say that women aren't funny. I'm a hilarious person, so I don't know.
This is extremely
how they can say to me that women aren't funny. But I really do think that Hollywood at the time focused a lot on men in comedy. And I mean, if you look at other comedies of this kind of era, of Zoolander, Wedding Crashers, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, and even Knocked Up to a degree, although there is a woman featured in Knocked Up as a primary character, she's very much seen as the annoying one. The character that Katherine Heigl plays in that movie. Yeah. She's kind of seen as a bit uptight. And this is the way the movie portrays her as uptight, as too focused on her job. You know, it's not the right time for her to have a child. All of those things. And then the other characters, the male characters, are kind of seen as a bit more aloof, a bit more cool. And I feel like very much the same about Anchorman, in a sense that the men in Anchorman are allowed to be silly and goofy and do stupid things and say stupid things and have all these fantastic lines. And Christina Applegate is there to kind of be the straight man, essentially, of the movie. And absolutely no slight on Christina Applegate, because I think she is wonderful.
She's
genius. Incredible, playing this very, very kind of straight-laced character who's seen in this movie as maybe being a bit too serious. Like, she's more serious, she takes her job very seriously. But unless you're a woman in that situation and you've been constantly told you're not good enough, you know, you don't have a brain big enough, that's scientific fact, apparently, according to Ron Burgundy. Unless you're constantly told that you're not good enough, then you don't understand what it's like to be a woman in that situation. But I feel like the movie is framing her as being too uptight and, you know, sticking in the mud and too focused on her job. You know, she's so focused on her job, she can't even enjoy having relations with Ron Burgundy, you know, even though he takes her to Pleasure Town. And let's be honest, every woman likes to be taken to Pleasure Town, guys. The movie frames its female characters in such a way, and then every other comedy movie does the same thing. And it's really frustrating. And I feel like until we get to Bridesmaids, even then, that the tide doesn't really turn as much as you would like it to turn for female-fronted comedy.
Yeah. I think to her credit, because I mean, I think she's a comedic genius. I like I said, I've always loved her. And like her kind of role in Married with Children, like everybody in that show is like a hyper caricature of, you know, whatever they were. Like she was, you know, the sexy, ditzy blonde girl, you know, which it kind of informs like the rest of her career, because that's why she likes to play these characters that aren't that, you know. But I do think in this film, I think that you're right on one hand, like she definitely is played to be the straight man, because all of the men in this movie are just, they're oafish, you know, they're cartoons, they're cartoon characters basically. But I think there are at least, to her credit, like she at least gets some scenes to be silly and to be funny and to, you know, like to have a lot of fun. And she, for me, is easily probably one of the bright spots in this movie, besides Ed Willard, which I love him so much. He died. When did he just died recently too, didn't he? Wasn't it last year? I can't remember.
I think it was last year.
Yeah, I can't remember. But I love Fred Willard so much. He's absolutely amazing. But yeah, I love her. I love her so much. And I do at least appreciate the fact that she gets some different moments to be silly. She gets some different moments to have like a lot of fun with this character. And you can tell that she's having a lot of fun playing this character, I think. And I think that really comes through in her performance.
I absolutely love Christina Applegate. She is an absolute highlight in this movie for me. But I think it's really tough to be the woman in this movie, to have that responsibility on her shoulders, which, to be fair, I think she handles it really, really well, to have that responsibility to be this character. She does have a couple of scenes where the character gets to take her defences down, which is nice, because I absolutely, completely, 100%, I am team Corningstone, because I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be the only woman in a team of men. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not suggesting that my workplace is anything like this particular workplace. Just to reiterate that once more, just in case anyone from my work is listening. But it is really hard. You do have all of these additional pressures. And then to add the time period on top as well, you know, the fact it's set in the 70s, the fact it's set in the media industry as well. And so much has come out about the media industry specifically recently with the Me Too movement and all of that. And you look at a movie like this, it makes it a little bit more awkward and a little bit more icky.
Yeah.
You know, to when you kind of think that a woman has to do 10 times the work to get to the same place as a man in this industry. But in this movie, you have the men, specifically Ron Burgundy, getting jealous of her success and trying to curtail that success, trying to get rid of her. Looking at it now with a modern lens, yeah, it is still funny, but it's not the same kind of side-splitting comedy that it was back in 2004. It's almost like you say, it's like a cartoon. It's like a parody of itself almost. That you can laugh at it, but you're kind of not laughing with it.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it.
It just highlights so much of what has been wrong with society and the media and, you know, sexism in the workplace and all of that sort of stuff. And I appreciate the fact that when you came on to talk about this movie, you probably didn't think that we was going to be talking about, you know, such serious topics because, let's be honest, all of these things, you know, they're prevalent now. And then you think, what must it have been like for a woman in the 70s? I don't even want to think about what it must have been like for a successful woman in the workplace in the 70s. And
you talk about an uphill climb, like the amount of work, like you said, like 10 times as much. And I think this film not only it lampoons it in that way where, you know, there's an ickiness to it, like you said, but it also, I think, highlights just how much further we still have to go. You know, there's still it's maybe not as out in the open, you know, it's not like as overt as it is in this film, but it's still there. You know, it definitely still exists. And, you know, I think that watching this movie through a modern lens, I think it only highlights that. You know, it doesn't take away from how funny these characters are and how funny a lot of the dialogue is, but I'll circle back to it. It doesn't play. Like, it just doesn't play. Like, this plot is just, it plays like it, like if you remove the comedy from, like if you remove like the funny one-liners, like the really funny quotes from this, like it's a really sad and almost like kind of like hyper offensive movie, you know?
Yeah, it really is. And I don't know why I'm laughing at that, but it's funny in the sense that it never really set out to be that. I think it just set out to be a really silly movie based on these real people that really existed, on their lives. And if you do look at a person like Jessica Savitch, someone who actually was there at the time, who was blazing a trail for women in broadcast news, she actually really suffered throughout her life. I didn't actually mention it before, but she had drug addictions, and she actually, her life ended through drowning.
Oh, wow.
So she was in a car with her partner at the time, and they'd basically been out and they'd had a couple of drinks, and no one really knew what happened, but the car ended up in, I think it was a lake.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, she died. So like, really tragic end to her life. Yeah. A life that was so influential and so important that they've literally made 2 movies with characters based on her. So she was a really, really influential and important woman. Not many people know the name Jessica Savitch. I suppose not many people know the name Mort Crim. But I think in this particular story, when we're talking about Anchorman, I really do feel like we could have spent an hour talking about Mort Crim and what he did in his life. But let's be honest, he's another white man. So I really do feel like the most important person to focus on was Jessica Savitch and and her life and her career.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of why I focused a little bit more on her, because in agreement with you, the character of Veronica is A, the more interesting character in this movie anyway, and B, looking at it now, like you say, with a modern lens, Veronica really is the hero of this story.
Yeah, for sure.
And yet, this is a movie with Ron Burgundy's name in the title. Yeah. So they really, it's called Anchorman. It's not called Anchor Lady, by the way. I just find that really fascinating. This is a podcast. This is a movie podcast hosted by a woman, unsurprisingly focusing on the woman in the story. I feel like this movie would have definitely aged a little better if it had maybe taken a bit more care of the Veronica character, maybe. But then it wouldn't have been funny in 2004, so it probably wouldn't have done so well.
And I think maybe the film, and we've talked about it, at length now, but the film obviously is presenting like a very kind of hyper surreal kind of take on, all this sexism, but there's not really a check against it. Like, obviously through the film, like, we see as viewers how competent and how strong Veronica is as a character, but I don't feel like maybe the movie doesn't do enough to kind of check against the men's behavior through the whole thing. So it doesn't feel like you get to the end of this, like, and it doesn't feel like there's a lesson learned there, maybe. Like, and maybe the movie would probably, and I feel like maybe even the comedy in this movie, maybe everything about this movie would play better if you had that. If there was more of a, like more than just a flippant remark by Danny Trejo in a bar being like, times are changing. Like, like dig deep, like there's more to it than that. And I think that's the difference between watching this movie in 2004 and in 2021. In 2021, now we want to have that discussion. Now we want, like that needs to be checked. Like, there needs to be repercussions, about it. Something like that. You know what that's at least where I'm kind of thinking about. Like, I think if you reframe this movie, if this movie had just something more in terms of hey, this behavior's not acceptable, you can't treat women this way, like kind of thing to it, then I feel like it would round it out. Like it would be more well-rounded in that sense. And maybe everything would play a lot better, Have
I told you recently how wonderful you are?
Not enough. I'll start a list. I'll start a tally.
Yeah, you should start a tally because I feel genuinely 100% from my heart and soul that I genuinely feel like if there were more men like you in the world, then the world would be such a better place. Genuinely. Because you are amazing, and you have basically wonderfully summarised the last, hour or so of conversation, in that that's what this movie needs to have done. It didn't do it. And it's unfortunate that it didn't do that. But I think that is just the fact that it's a comedy from the 2000s. But I'm not suggesting that Anchorman should be the promising young woman of its time or anything like that. But I certainly feel like it's not acceptable anymore to have men behave this way and to not reap the consequences of their behaviour. Anyone listening to this podcast, I mean, whether they're still listening or not, because we've probably just taken their favourite comedy movie and just thrown it through the ringer, but that's truth. It's dropping truth bombs about this movie. But I feel like I could have said, and this is genuinely how I feel, I could have said all of the things that you just said, and someone listening could just take that and go, oh, well, she's just being a really annoying woman. Like, what right does she have to say stuff like that about my favourite movie, Anchorman? But I feel like still in this day and age, if a woman says something, then she's just being annoying or dumb or, whatever. Insert whatever adjective you want to insert. Yeah. But the fact that you've said it as a man and that you can appreciate the problems that are there in this movie and what the movie actually needs to do to resolve that problem means a hell of a lot more. To have a man say
And the
it.
sad thing is it shouldn't, too.
It shouldn't. It absolutely shouldn't. But that is one of the actual issues that's highlighted in this movie. That it doesn't matter. It still doesn't matter what a woman says or how she says it or why she says it. It's still the de facto response is always, it needs to come from a man to actually mean something.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that to devalue anything that you've just said or to devalue you, because, like I say, the fact that you actually said that means a lot to me as a person and as a woman. And hopefully it does mean that people out there will actually, respect and understand that point of view, because that is a point of view that I also share. But yeah, the fact that I feel like people will only really appreciate that because a man has said it is the actual problem. And that's the thing that we need to fix. But this movie actually doesn't do anything to help fix that. It just kind of exacerbates that mentality of, well, women don't deserve a seat at the table because they're women. And I feel like we've gone a bit down. And I don't want this experience for you or for anyone listening for this episode to kind of end on a down note. There is something in this movie that kind of makes it a little bit timeless in a weird way. There are comedy movies from the 2000s that people aren't talking about or people don't really care about anymore. Something like Superbad, for example. How big was Superbad at the time? It was huge.
Yeah.
Everyone was talking about Superbad. Everyone was talking about McLovin, all of that. And Superbad is... I've not heard anyone talk about that particular movie for... I don't know how long. People don't talk about it anymore. People had those like fake McLovin IDs. I don't know if that was a thing in America, but it was a thing here. People had McLovin IDs and everyone was talking about Superbad. No one talks about it anymore. So I feel like Anchorman is in that kind of weird position of, like I say, it's still in the lexicon for a reason, even though that reason isn't the best reason that it should be in the lexicon.
Yeah, I think there's just
if you know what I
there's
mean.
just a point in this film. There's just, when you dig past the quotability, like and this is still a funny movie in a lot of ways. There are still a lot of really funny and really great, amazing quotes. But when you scrape away the surface, and you look deeper at this movie, you see and yes, it's lampooning this cartoonish, buffoonish behavior. It's highlighting, in a way, like these men are not to be emulated. These men are, not behaving like normal people should. But like I said, I don't think it checks against that enough, and I don't think, I think what it does, and even this conversation, it just highlights, we still have further to go. Like how much more we still have to do in this realm, how much more, there shouldn't be any of this kind of divide. Like no one should listen to this conversation and think less of you or more of me because of our genders respectively. They should just, I don't know where else I'm going with that, but
I know exactly what you mean. I kind of want to start to wrap up the kind of general conversation. And I'm just trying to think of a good way to do it. That's not completely depressing. Because, yeah, I feel like we've obviously talked about some quite serious topics.
You're welcome, San Diego.
I don't think we would be a very good Ron and Veronica. Veronica can quite easily say very mean things to Ron. Although I did criticise your hair. I did say you had bad hair. That's probably the worst you'll get out of me, I'm afraid.
Dare you? Are you gonna grab a radio antenna and start whipping me with it now?
Whatever your kink is absolutely 100% fine with me. I support your wish to be whipped. I'm not sure Rebecca wants that out there in the general public, but yeah, whatever.
I've got welts, guys. Oh my.
So it's at this point that I would normally move on to the obligatory Keanu reference. However, I don't have one yet.
What podcast am I even on? Just...
Well, let me be completely honest, listeners. I asked one thing of Nick to come on this podcast. And I said, come on this podcast, you are very welcome. I can't wait to have you. And I basically said, bring your own obligatory Keanu reference. And so before we started recording, I said to Nick, did you remember to bring your obligatory Keanu reference? And I'm paraphrasing when I say that Nick basically said that he couldn't be bothered to do it. Is that not true, Nicholas Haskins?
I think my exact words were something along the lines of, I would never in a million years try to steal your thunder away from you, because I know you love Keanu so much that for me to try to come up with an obligatory Keanu reference, like what if I failed you? Like you would judge me forever. I would be literally the worst person that you've ever met if I didn't deliver something as good as you. So I said, step away from the table, let the master do her work. Like she's so good at this. I can't even like try to attempt it. So that was kind of my reasoning.
So first of all, all of that is a lie. and second of all, you misunderstand my level of just general affection that I have for you. You could have got away with giving a bad reference. You could have got away with reusing one. You could have got away with saying Keanu Reeves was working in Hollywood in 2004. That would have been
Keanu
fine.
Reeves
for
is
me.
an actor who has appeared in movies. I think one of them he wears sunglasses and kicks Hugo Weaving in the face. Something, I think. Yeah. Ooh, and he was also on a movie about a bus that had to speed around the city. And if its speed dropped below 50, it would explode. I think it was called The Bus That Couldn't Slow Down. It all comes back to The Simpsons for me, folks. Always. Literally always. Always.
You see, the thing is, I will absolutely take that as an obligatory Keanu reference. There we go. We've done it.
Yes.
We've done the feature, even though you did not prepare for it.
You know what we just did? We just Anchormaned it. It was just improv. We just needed a few takes, but we got there.
It was absolute improv. And then I'm basically going to get you to do 5 more takes, all with completely different answers, and I'm going to choose the best one to put in the podcast.
This was attempt number 4. I'm in tears now.
We've been on for an hour and a half already. So I think what
like 7 minutes of it's usable, though, really.
This is true. This must be how they make movies. You know, they basically record something. They're like, right, guys, just improv. We're here. Basically, well, we started this conversation literally peeing our pants with laughter. Mm-hmm. Then we got into really serious topics. And now is like that really weird kind of post-serious discussion of, yeah.
Now we gotta try to be funny
now,
again.
So, yeah, need to laugh at his jokes again. But we've just had a really serious conversation. So, have you seen the sequel to Anchorman?
I hated it. It was terrible.
It was quite bad, wasn't it? I don't even remember the plot. I've seen it once. I didn't think it was funny, and I don't remember the plot. So
no, it was just...
that basically tells you everything you need to know.
I don't remember anything about it either. The only thing I remember is the van, like, they're all in a van and like in slow motion going around the inside of it.
That's quite
That's
funny.
the only thing I remember about that movie.
Yeah, that's quite funny. But otherwise, there are no other sequels to Anchorman, and there probably never will be. Because let's be honest, this is pretty much, as we've discussed, a movie of its time. And I don't think that another sequel would really fly in today's, 2020s modern sensibilities. Yeah. So everyone listening, that was an episode on Anchorman. It was a little bit different to any other episode that I've ever done, but for a really good reason. Because this episode, contains Nicholas Haskins. So I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for coming on Verbal Diorama for the first of hopefully, let's not say many because you might be sick of me by then.
Never.
At least 2 or 3, perhaps.
The first of 2 appearances. I'm coming back for the Simpsons movie, and that's it.
Yeah, I will have you back for the Simpsons movie. How about that?
I will come back.
I will guarantee that to you.
I will come back literally as many times as you'll have me.
Don't, because otherwise I'll sign you up as my co-anchor.
I'm in. Sold. Done.
Oh, that's really nice. So, yeah, a huge thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and taking the time on a Saturday to record this several weeks in advance of its release, by the way. And obviously, now we haven't really talked about your podcast, Nikoli's Kitchen, and we also haven't really talked about Live Stream for the Cure either. But now is your opportunity to tell people. Firstly, tell them about your podcast because it's wonderful and I absolutely love it. It's a positive thing in my ears. Like every time you release something, I listen to it. It kind of chills me out. It calms me down. You have such a wonderful, soothing voice, which, everyone knows because they've heard you on a podcast now. You have one of the best voices. Oh. Don't start making voices. You have one of the best voices in podcasting.
Thank you.
It's melodious. It's like honey. And then to have your podcast where you're all about positivity and joy and wonderful food as well. It's genuinely, it's a tonic for the soul, your podcast. So I love it, but please tell everyone all about Nikoli's Kitchen and where they can find you.
Yeah, nothing I'm going to say about it's going to top what you just said about it. So I would rather leave it there. And I don't I'm not a plug guy. I don't like doing plugs. I mean, all my information for sure will be on the show notes and I'll be tagged on social media and stuff when it gets released. But instead of a plug, just whenever you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to this, just I hope that your life is absolutely amazing. And I just heard Jess meowing, and just
she's agreeing
go
with
out
you.
there and just be kind to somebody today. And I just hope that life is so beautiful for you. Like everybody deserves love and happiness and respect. And I hope more than anything that today and tomorrow, and like I said, whenever you're listening to this, that's what you get. Just be the absolute best person you can be, and the world is such a crappy place sometimes. So don't add to it. Just put good things out in the world. Just project love and kindness. That's it. That's my plug.
You really are wonderful, by the way.
Thank you.
Just in case I haven't told you recently.
Thank you.
You really are. And that basically, that basically, listeners, is what you can expect from Nikoli's Kitchen. It is one of the most positive and life-affirming and wonderful podcasts. And it's hosted by this amazing, incredible man.
Who? Is he here with me now?
No, he just left the room, actually. He was behind you a second ago. It's a shame. He was really attractive too. So I've lost my train of thought. That's what happens. I am so grateful that you've taken the time to be here. Jess is here with me now as well. She wanted to obviously finish this episode with us. So yeah, she is in the room. She obviously just wanted to see you,
Aww.
Nick. So, and she's not actually looking. She's too busy licking my hand. Clearly, I'm dirty and filthy. Like all
that's
women.
true.
Dirty, filthy women.
But you especially.
I mean, I am.
You more than most.
Yeah.
Definitely.
No, I am. Absolute filth comes out of my mouth all the time. Just not on a family-friendly podcast.
You guys should have heard her in the pre-roll. Like, oh, wow.
Yeah, that does not leave this room, even though we're not in the same room. But you know what I mean. You take that to your grave. Thank you for listening. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts on Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy. If you have enjoyed this episode, you can help Verbal Diorama grow and be noticed by others by leaving a rating or review, ideally 5 stars, on somewhere like Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. You can retweet or like posts on social media, or you can simply just tell your friends or family about this podcast. Now, the next episode, as I said, last episode, is a bit of a switch around. So Anchorman came forward and this episode got pushed back. And for the next episode, we're going from the 2000s way back to the 60s. Beatlemania was rampant. And in the spirit of Beatlemania, 4 young men create the the Wonders, and have a hit single that propels them into the big time. It's Tom Hanks' directorial debut. It is That Thing You Do. It's charming, sweet and self-assured. And like a podcast, you may know, has an earworm of a song. So please join me next week as I delve into That Thing You Do. If you want to follow me on social media, you can do so. I am at Verbal Diorama on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and Letterboxd. As always, if you wish, you can sign up to support the show financially, but you're under no obligation to do so. As always, a huge thank you to the patrons of Verbal Diorama: Simon E, Sade, Hardy L, Claudia, Simon B, Laurel, Derek, Jason, Kristin, Kat, Andy, Mike, Griff, Luke, Emily, Michael, Scott, Mark, Brendan, Ian, Lisa, Sam, Will, Jack and Dave. They've done studies, 60% of the time, they work every time. You can check out my merch store, verbaldiorama.com/merch. You can say hi to me, verbaldiorama@gmail.com, or you can pop over to my website, verbaldiorama.com. And you can also pop over to Film Stories. I write for the magazine. There's a new issue out shortly. And I also write bits for filmstories.co.uk. For the entire Verbal Diorama news team, I'm Em.
And I'm Nick. Go yourself, San Diego.
Who knows? And there's a fly. Go away.
Oh my.
Sorry, this fly just flew right into my face.
It was like the Ron Burgundy fly, like, don't you talk about me. Don't you do it.
I was a little bit in a glass case of emotion there. I was like, no, get away from me. No, get away from me. To this fly. For the entire Verbal Diorama news team, I'm Em.
Oh, wait, that was my part.
Yeah, this is where you come in.
Okay. All right, give it to me one more time.
What, and the line? I'm joking.
This is why I love you.